Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos and our video worship for Sunday, May 16th, 2021. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people and gather together in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in this present moment, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome to be part of this community. We invite everyone, especially those of you who are coming to us for the first time through these video services, to take some time to connect with us on our Facebook page and in our virtual fellowship hall, and ask any questions you might have of me about Unitarian Universalism or about our faith community here in Los Alamos. Send me an email with your questions. The links for all of these are provided in the service notes below this video. Once again, welcome. And we look forward to seeing you face to face very soon. We summon ourselves from the demands and delights of the daily round, from the dirty dishes and unwaxed floors, from unmowed grass and untrimmed bushes, from all incompleteness and not yet startedness, from the unholy and the unresolved. We summon ourselves to attend to our vision of peace and justice, of cleanliness and health, of delight and devotion, of the lovely and the holy, of who we are and what we can do. We summon the power of tradition and the exhilaration of newness, the wisdom of the ages and the knowing of the very young. We summon beauty, eloquence, poetry, and music to be the bearers of our dreams. We would open our eyes, our ears, our minds, our hearts to the amplest dimensions of life. We rejoice in manifold promises and possibilities. Come, Let us worship together. Please join us in our affirmation.
Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all.
For all our joys, all our sorrows, whether we share them with one another or we hold them close to our hearts, let us be with one another in spirit and in a moment of silence. Please join with me now in a spirit of prayer and reflection. Eternal and beloved, Gracious source of all life and all love, we are grateful today for this time out of time, which we have set apart so that we might become more fully present to our own selves, to our communities, to that which we call holy. May our joys be celebrated together, our wounds be healed together, our hearts be opened together. We gather together from different directions, different horizons. Our lives tell different stories, but still we gather. For in spite of those differences, we know these things to be true, that we are each free to tell our own story, that the arc of each story begins within us but does not end with us, and that though our stories may be different, our own tales are enriched and given context by the telling of others. May we be reminded of our need to hear one another's stories. May we find in our hearts a place of deep and reverent listening, a tolerance for different stories. And when the time comes, may we have the courage to speak our own stories into the circle of care and concern. All this we pray in the names of those known and unknown, present and absent, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. I'm going to talk about something really powerful today. Hope. Have you ever hoped for something? And did the thing you hoped for happen? I think that hope is kind of like these acorns. What do you think this acorn hopes to be someday? And see, here's why acorns remind me of hope. Now, if I just dropped an acorn on the floor and walked away, would it have any hope of becoming an oak tree? No. What does it need? Soil, water, air, sunshine. Like acorns, our hope needs other things to come to life. First, we start with our imaginations. We imagine that thing we're hoping for. Take a moment now to just close your eyes and imagine something that you hope for. Your hopes are like acorns. They just need a little work, a little care, a little action, a little help, and some luck to ever really come to life like an acorn becomes an oak tree. And one important question, could you ever have an oak tree without first having an acorn? No. The same way, every great thing that anyone's ever done began with hope, with someone's imagination of what could be, plus action to help it grow to life. And that's the power of hope. So I have talked a lot already this month about what it means to be a people of story. I've talked a lot about story, but I haven't actually told a story to you yet. And because I'm a storyteller at heart, I decided that we would cap off this exploration of story with me telling you a story, a brand new story, a story about our future, a history of our future, if you will, but not a chronology, not a point-by-point list of the things I think are going to happen. I am making absolutely no predictions today, because I work in the genres of fantasy and science fiction and allegory and pseudo-folk tales. That's my preferred storytelling milieu. And so I'm going to tell you a bit of an allegory, a bit of a fantasy. Because that's a lovely thing about fantasy and about science fiction, is that it has the capacity to spur our imaginations to build new and great things. There are stories that abound of Star Trek alone spurring our technical imaginations to work on things like small communicators and replicators and our Apple Watches that are now, medical tricorders on our wrists, and even some transporter technology that's still way far off, but people are playing with it. But beyond our technical and our scientific imagination, the best of these stories have the capacity to spur on our moral imagination, to give us some sort of pathway to think about the ways that we are living in new ways and the ways that we want to be. And because I talked last week about the need to revision from time to time, to tell a story about who we want to be in the future, that is the story I am going to tell you today. A brief history of the future, told in a short, fantastic folk tale, a bit of allegory, to spur our imaginations for who we might be as a people. And this is just one story. It's the story the way I choose to tell it today. But I hope it spurs your own imagination about the future, and your moral and your spiritual imagination as well.
Been most everywhere. Ask me what
It was so, and it was not so, that once, very long ago, the people were divided one from the other, for they valued only their own small selves, and they cared little, if at all, for how their choices affected others. And as a result, the world had fractured into tiny shards. Famine, disease, hatred, and endless war spread throughout every land. And the more things fell apart, the more each person retreated into their own personal bubbles, isolated in their own cold, dark caves of the self. And this cycle went on for quite some time. More chaos led to deeper retreat, led to more chaos, and onward and downward. So ingrained was this cycle that the people found they knew no other way of being, and the downward spiral came to be known as just the way things are. So it came as a shock one morning when every person alone in their bubble awoke one morning with complete awareness of 5 other people. Where before in their consciousness they had cultivated a sense of mere self, now there was a broad and a deep knowledge of 5 other total strangers. Not just the fact of their existence, but a running catalog of their hopes and fears, their triumphs and failures, their joys and sorrows, their talents and their struggles. And each one of those 5 found themselves connected to a different 5, and so on and so on. And this brought about a new kind of chaos, this sudden awareness, more frightening than the current chaos that the people had lived with for so long, because this was new, and it was different. And the people did not know how to live with it. At first, they tried what they always did when chaos presented itself. They tried to retreat further and further into their personal caves. But alone and isolated, with nothing but their own minds to keep them company, they found they could not escape from the awareness of those 5 others. So soon they gave in to that inescapable knowledge, and they let the new awareness engulf them. They got out of their own way, and they allowed themselves to know these others. And then finally, they wept. For a day and a night they wept. Wept for sorrow, for they knew now that their separation was a lie that they'd told themselves. Wept for shame and regret for how their selfishness had caused so much suffering for others. And after 7 days of this new awareness, on the 7th day of these new connections, the voice sounded out of nowhere. To some it sounded like the voice of their God. To others, it was a voice that called out from the deep heart of the universe. But no matter how it sounded, it was a voice of wisdom and authority, unavoidable, inescapable. It was the voice of all that is becoming all that shall be. And the voice said, millennia ago, we left you with one law. Love others as you love yourself. Want for others what you want for yourself. And each person heard that golden law repeated in the language of their own soul. We thought this gift of the law was enough, the voice continued. But you are as clever as you are fallible. And in time, you found the loophole, a self-justified reason for shirking the one golden law. You stopped believing that others were real. We have watched the consequences of this with mounting despair. But we are not the sort to give up, to simply write you off. So we have chosen to gift you all with a far more concrete object lesson. It is disconcerting, we know. Take heart. You do not have to keep this gift forever. Simply do this. Live with the knowledge of your 5 for 1 year. And when that year has passed, then and only then, may you reject our gift. And with that, the voice of all that is departed their consciences. There was outrage among some at the unwanted intrusion and the voice's terms and conditions for the gift, especially among those who made their fortunes stoking divisions and feeding the big lie of separation. But among most of the rest was a resignation, tinged with a bit of fear that they would go mad carrying the weight of the knowledge of 5 other people, witnessing the realness of their lives and the rippling consequences of their own choices upon those others. But they soon understood that their fears were unfounded, and their regret gave way to the clear and simple lesson that the all that is intended, the simple and stark knowledge that others are, indeed, real as they knew their own selves to be. And rather than a heavy burden, rather than a sense of carrying this unwanted weight of others, there came a sense of lightness and freedom. For the truth of others demanded no more and no less of those that carried them than the choice to simply let them be. Other people became souls to lift up and not problems to solve. And the burden that came with the understanding was found to be no burden at all. Time passed, and more people awakened to this lightness. And the more who awakened, the more the truth of our myriad interconnections was made plain as day. And while the choices to act for and with others living in their consciences was never easy, for nothing ever is truly easy, there was no sense of despair at the challenges, because we were, after all, really in this together. Leaders and lawmakers started speaking of carrying their 5 into Oval Offices and legislative halls, and in town halls and halls of worship, in classrooms, boardrooms, courtrooms, and dining rooms. The ethic of carrying your 5 found its way into daily life, became a way of being. This was not an instant change. The people did not heal the fractures of the world overnight, for the world is complex, and the healing of interconnections takes generations. But in carrying their 5, the people found that the biggest obstacle to change had almost completely disappeared. And they knew that the way things are did not need to be the way things always would be. And when the all that is returned, most of the people elected to continue carrying their 5. But only most. Some still could not see beyond their own navels, could not imagine themselves removed from the center of the universe. They rejected the gift and retreated back into their caves. But despite their renunciation, they could never fully disconnect, for someone somewhere still carried them in their conscience. So while they gave up on the world did not give up on them. And the gift persisted from then until now, granted to each young person at the cusp of maturity, who each were given the choice after a year to reject the gift or continue carrying their 5. And most chose to continue carrying. And generation after generation, we repaired more and more of the fractured world and grew more and more whole as a people. And now, dear grandchild, you sit by the fire we've built out in the wilderness. You have lived with your 5 for nearly a year. We have told you the story as our grandparents told it to us, as our parents told it to your parents. And now, dear grandchild, you will make your choice as the sun rises to carry your 5 for the rest of your life, or to lay them aside forever. Just a few announcements before we close out this morning's service. First, a reminder that next week is the Zoom portion of our annual business meeting for all of our voting members. The link for that can be found in the announcements email and in the packet that you were mailed last week. That will take place starting after the debut of next Sunday's service, around about 11 o'clock. So do please join us for that. Take a look at our proposed budget and the slate of candidates, and be ready to mail your ballot back in after the meeting. And also, I'd like to announce, in addition to our usual monthly collection on Givelify this month for Española Pathways Shelter, our friends at the United Church have started a special collection for their Mexico mission project. Usually we will take our youth on spring break, both churches together, to go build a few houses in Puerto Peñasco, Mexico. For obvious reasons, we have not been able to do that for the past 2 spring breaks. And so United Church is attempting to gather some funds to send down to the community so that a few houses might be built by some local crews instead. There is a line item open in the Givelify app for the Mexico mission. Please consider a donation to that as well. We will give all of that money to the United Church to send down to our Amor Ministry partners in Puerto Peñasco. Thank you.
To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to be born. time of hate, a time of war, a time of peace, a time you may embrace, a time to refrain from embracing. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rest, a time to sow, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, turn, turn. And a time for every purpose under
Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.